Hey guys, welcome back to a quick midweek banter bets and BPL. We're going to be talking fantasy Premier League here. And people have been saying I don't know what I talk about. So I brought in a guy that's going to make me look good and make me look like I know what I'm talking about. It's, of course, a fantasy legend, Brother Kieran. So he's going to be in here to give his takes on some fantasy stuff as well. Just another voice to hear and, again, make me look like I know what I'm talking about at least. Kieran, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Fantasy legend for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, unluckiest fantasy player ever, Mr. Unlucky.
Yeah.
All right, Kieran, Let's get right into it. We just had almost a full slate of games. We unfortunately had Burnley Fulham postponed. Not that that has much impact on probably your fantasy plans this week anyway and your waiver wire plans. So if we're going to lose a game, might as well lose that one. But let's get right into Southampton 1, Liverpool 0. Title race well and truly on, Kieran. United are going to win the title. We know that now. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, though, but we will win the title. But in terms of fantasy, what I have from this game, and again, guys, we're going to give kind of one or two takeaways, try and aim it towards fantasy. I don't know, every week, like we're going to try not to repeat ourselves, but it is tough to find new things with Premier League fantasy, but we're just kind of trying to get ahead of the curve and give you guys tips on what we're seeing. Liverpool. So mine is, and you got to dig a little bit deep because we know the regular players that are fantasy value for Liverpool. Now, Liverpool has long been a team that I have thought, okay, I need one of their mids, whichever one of their mids going to become fantasy value. And when I say mid, I don't mean Salah, even though he's listed as a mid. I mean literally the three they play in midfield. Because they score so many goals, you'd think one of those three midfielders that they play in the 4-3-3 is going to emerge as being fantasy value. Been waiting for it forever, but it never happens because they never play the same midfield twice in a row. Oxlade-Chamberlain is a guy that I'm always keeping an eye on in fantasy, always want to pick him up. He starts this game. I don't think I'm going to pick him up. One, because he came back in a horrible performance. They lost 1-0. So you got to think Klopp's going to change it up. And two, even if they won this game 5-0, I would expect them to roll out the next game with a different midfield. So I know Ox is a guy, maybe even Wijnaldum people are looking at. I've always been a fan of Ox as a player, but I don't think he plays consistently enough to warrant being picked up unless you think Klopp is just going to change his style. So that's what I have from Liverpool. My Southampton note is, and I touched on it a bit last week, Djenepo started again. I really think they trust him. I know he hasn't done anything yet, but he scored some nice goals last season. I think he could be a fantasy relevant player on a pretty good attack. Those are my two notes. Kieran, what do you got?
Yeah. For Liverpool, I was mainly watching this game and I thought, wow. And even in the past two games, Liverpool are lacking a cutting edge. Like they're not the same team last year.
Time.
Yeah, like the entirety of last season, you thought no matter what position they were in, Liverpool are going to score. They'll win this game. It'll all be fine. And some of that was because, look at their front three. They're ridiculously good. And others, they just seem to get the lucky bounce every time. Like the Everton Derby game where Van Dijk literally thumped a half volley from the center circle and it hit the bar and it came in and they scored. But there was always, for some reason, they were going to score. You just knew it.
Yeah.
And I think this bodes well for the unlucky few like me who end up with Jota and he's hurt.
Somehow end up with them. I don't know how it happened, but
yeah, nobody's ever spoken about how it happened. He just kind of appeared on my team. But he looked so good in that attack. And now that he's gone, and it hasn't coincided exactly with him leaving, but they're struggling going forward. Yeah. So you got to think when he comes back fit, Klopp will want to throw him into the mix as soon as he can, because Liverpool, for the first time in a long time, are lacking a cutting edge, it seems.
Yeah, obviously Jota is definitely a hold. And if you own Jota, you're happy with how they're playing right now because you know he's going to get thrown right back in. So, yep, I'd agree with that. Oh, yeah.
And then for Southampton, I had you look at the way they played, and it wasn't them parking the bus and getting lucky and getting a 1-0 win. Although in the second half, they did have to sit back more because Liverpool came out harder. But you look at a lot of that first half, they were pressing Liverpool high and they were going strong, and they were playing the same way they've played for a while, the same way they played when they got blitzed 9-0 last year against Leicester. But they've gotten much better. And I think you can look at their goalie and their defenders now and think they might actually keep some clean sheets. Like, they've gotten much better defensively. So I think looking at Southampton defenders, specifically Kyle Walker-Peters, who looks like this is his coming out year after struggling to get minutes at Tottenham. He looks like, and their defenders look like good pickups in fantasy, I think.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. Bertrand, Walker-Peters, Bednarek, and Vestergaard should all be owned, as well as McCarthy, of course. Just from clean sheet potential for them, that's a team that's making a step.
Yeah, absolutely. And clean sheets is the most consistent way you'll get points from defenders. So look for defenders who will keep clean sheets.
Yep. All right. Moving along. Chelsea gets taken apart in the first half at home against Man City. They look bad. I couldn't be happier about it.
That was ugly.
Yeah. City looked awesome. Let's start with the good. City, we know what players are good. Obviously, De Bruyne is awesome. Obviously, Sterling's going to be awesome. I think this was a big up for Foden this game. As a Mahrez owner, I am worried that he's not going to get back in the team because Foden looked great. And just when City plays great like this, you got to think they're going to play those players until they don't look great. So if I'm a Foden owner, I'm really happy. Chelsea,
Nate.
Yeah, exactly. Nate doesn't have much to be happy about in fantasy. There's one thing for you, Nate. Chelsea side, man, Chelsea sucks right now, which means it's really tough to trust a lot of their fantasy players. Obviously, you're not doing anything rash and dropping any of their mains, but I was going to say maybe Hudson-Odoi gets some momentum. He's came on the last couple games and looked their best player, not saying much.
I had that down too.
Run.
Yeah. I had that down too, Liam, as a potential something to look at.
Yeah, so he's probably not owned in your league. If you're a listener out there that's not in our current league, if anyone's out there actually doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he might be a fifth mid to look at for now. What do you got?
All right, for the Man City, they've turned a corner this year, and not that they've gotten any better going forward. If anything, they've looked a little bit worse, although this was an example of them going, hey, we're still fucking Man City. We can put 3 past any team in this league, no matter what. But I think I was a year too early to the party in getting Man City defenders. Last year, I drafted Walker and Ederson and Stones. And think about how good my team would be right now if I had those 3. They've conceded the least goals in the Prem. I think they have the most clean sheets this season. And Stones is a starter now.
I mean, you're definitely a year too early on Stones, I was going to say.
Yeah, I was definitely a year too early on Stones. But yeah, they look great in defense.
Yeah, they do.
And if you've got Man City defenders, you hold those, because you're not going to sell them off for anything better right now, unless you want to try and get a good mid, like package them with a decent mid and try and get a really good midfielder or forward off of somebody. But they're looking good. So yeah, that's what I have for Man City. And then for Chelsea, I hate Chelsea, but my point for them was positive that I wrote down is if you're holding Chelsea defenders or anything like that, don't panic just yet. They're still a top 6 team.
Yeah,
those are the defenders you want to own.
Yeah.
You don't, like, if you have Reece James who's hurt right now, don't get rid of him. He'll come back. You look at how bad Azpilicueta was in that game.
Yeah, for sure.
He's going to play as soon as he's fit. You don't worry about that. You don't worry about Chilwell or Zuma or Thiago Silva. That's their back 4 that Lampard's going to stick with. So you keep those guys because they'll turn it around at some point, as much as I hate to say it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. You should if you have a defender on a Big 6 team that is playing, I don't care how bad they're doing, hold on to that defender. He will be valuable. If he stops playing, that's another thing. Then you drop his ass. But as long as they're playing. Look at Tierney. His Arsenal team was garbage. Now he's awesome fantasy defender. So, yep, that's a great point, Kieran.
Yeah, I've got a point on him when we get to that Arsenal game.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to Newcastle 1, Leicester City 2. what do I have? Oh, for Leicester, I have so I've been looking for that fourth Leicester spot, that fourth Leicester attacking spot. It's usually on the right side of midfield, so opposite Barnes with Madison in the middle, Vardy up front, and Tielemans behind, who really looked good in that game and is fantasy valuable, even though he sits deep.
I was sitting there watching that game, Liam, and I thought it's a real shame that Tielemans doesn't get forward as much and he's not as fantasy relevant. And not 5 minutes later, he scored that goal.
Yeah, that was a great goal.
It felt like.
And speaking of that goal, and this is the guy I wanted to highlight, it's Albrighton. Is Albrighton going to be fantasy valuable? Because here I was last week talking about, I think Perez is the guy that gets fantasy value, but then I saw Albrighton play, one of the most underrated players in the league. You know that manager trusts him. And it looks like he's going to be the guy playing. He's not the most fun fantasy own, but if he's your fifth mid and he starts playing in a good attacking team, I think he could do worse.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think Jose Perez is somebody you can't really trust.
No.
And Albrighton is the textbook definition of a player you can trust. You know exactly what you're going to get from him. He'll give it to you every single week without fail. He may not be flashy, like you said, but
starting in that team. This is a dad player. This is a Bill Ezzard player if I've ever seen one. You know he's going to play. You know he'll get you the clean sheet every once in a while because Leicester are pretty good. That's what Dad. I'm surprised he's not on Dad's team.
Yep, he's a guaranteed he's guaranteed to get you 2 points for playing above 60 minutes.
Yeah. I also wanted a quick note on Leicester. We saw, and this is going to be a new sound drop for the pod. We saw the Junschmeister, the Lord himself, Lord Farquaad, emerge. Caligarsa Junchu. So we'll play the new drop for you guys. Oh, is that not playing, Kieran?
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Mm-hmm. So there's our new drop for the Lord, Caligarsa Junchu. Nice Shrek drop. I don't know. That probably didn't work as well as it should have, but whatever. He's back. Maybe he slots back into the team. If he does, I think he could be worth owning. So keep an eye on that one. Might be a prospective ad. Although they have been playing very good, and Fofana and Evans have been playing good without him. So I don't think he's an absolute guarantee to walk back into that team.
Yeah. Don't drop any good defender for him. I don't think he's not.
Yeah. No, he'd be yeah, exactly. Newcastle, I have absolutely nothing because I struggle to find anything to say about this team other than own Wilson and ride Wilson. I don't have any other fantasy value player relevant players on that team.
I thought long and hard for a point on Newcastle other than Callum Wilson is their only relevant player.
Yeah.
Jeez, what's happening with me there? Okay, I think my audio's back.
It's all right. Our editor will get to work on that. So we'll be all right.
But yeah, for me, out of that matchup, point for Leicester. You'll be loving this, Liam. James Justin doesn't look like he's going to get unsettled.
Justin's there to stay.
I was a firm believer that as soon as Pereira gets back, he's going to start in that back line. But Castang, when he was fit, looked good. James Justin has been fit, and he's looked good in every game I've watched him.
Justin hasn't missed a minute this season, by the way. I don't know how many players you could say that about. Literally don't have a stat for that, but it can't be that many. Hasn't missed a minute.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe Harry Maguire.
Yeah,
because he plays just about every minute. I was gonna say Connor Cody for Wolves, but I think he actually got rested in one of the games, so you can't even say it for him. But yeah, I think if you're holding on to Pereira because you think he's gonna come back and start,
you'll be holding on to him for a while.
You might be holding on to him for a while, and you pray that Justin or Castang gets hurt, because I think that's the only way he's getting back in now. Mm-hmm. As for Newcastle, I struggled to find a point. Like they baffle me, that team. I don't sometimes they'll get good results, but most of the time they're not very good at all. And you don't want to own many of their players. The only thing I could say is Carl Darlow looks pretty good
There you go.
Like he might not keep clean sheets, but he's one of those goalies that is going to make a lot of saves. And if he gets a clean sheet, he's probably going to get 3 bonus, because he's making a ton of saves because Newcastle don't have a very good defense in front of them. So if you've got Carl Darlow, good for you. He's a solid goalie, but that's as bright as it gets for Newcastle in fantasy wise.
Yep, 100%. Okay, Arsenal 4, West Brom 0. Do I have anything on West Brom? Let me check here. Probably not.
My
note on West Brom is Pereira played. Pereira was kind of a hype guy coming into the division, and he hasn't been playing lately, and he played. Not that they will actually ever score a goal again, but he played. So there you go.
Yeah. I was going to say, before we get into this game, should we touch on Fulham and Burnley? Because they were supposed to be the Sunday morning game. So
I don't know. Do you have anything?
Do you really want to say much?
No.
I think all I talked about was Burnley kind of look like Burnley again. They're starting to shore it up defensively. So owning their defenders isn't the worst thing in the world.
Own Peters, because he's been playing as a midfielder.
Yeah. I think Charlie Taylor got hurt though in the other day. So I think he might be playing left back now.
There you go.
But even then, as a 5th defender, if you want to rotate it out, take a chance on a Burnley player, Burnley defender, shout it out. Fulham, not really. I wouldn't touch their defense with a 10-foot pole. There's nothing new on that front, I think, other than Mitrovic doesn't look like he's going to be much relevant this year, which is disappointing because he seems like a perennial 10-goal scorer in the Prem. Like when he played there before, he was good for them, but he just doesn't seem to be up to it this year.
No, and that's a disappointing one because he was pretty fire when he was actually banging them in. Let's not waste any more time on that game that wasn't even played. My Arsenal one was, and this is a guy I picked up and I'm feeling pretty happy about, Kieran. I think it's Smith Rowe time.
Yep. I couldn't agree more, Liam. Couldn't agree more.
With the short socks, he's trotting around out there. I heard on a podcast this week he looks like an Ozil who actually tries, which was funny to hear.
Jack Wilshere 2.0, nice low socks.
Yeah,
playing in behind the striker.
So I think he's in a good spot to produce. I don't see him coming out of the team. So if Smith Rowe's on your waiver wire, go grab Emile Smith Rowe of Arsenal. What do you got?
That was a point that I had too, is if he isn't owned, Arsenal look like they might have turned a corner. Maybe you could be cautiously optimistic if you're an Arsenal fan. And I think it's because they've got a 10 in behind the striker now that actually gives a fuck.
Yeah.
Like they weren't playing with a 10 in that 3 in the back system that Arteta has been playing. And it showed because they lacked creativity when fucking Xhaka and El Neni are your 2 midfielders trying to get attacks going. So him playing in behind, he's looked good, along with all the youngsters that are playing for them right now. I know I have Saka, and personal bias maybe, but Saka has looked pretty fucking great for even when they were playing bad. He's looked like a good player. So, but yeah, pick up Smith Rowe if you can get him, because Saka is probably already owned in your league because he's been a known commodity since last year, but go after Smith Rowe. That, and yeah, Arsenal might have turned a corner, maybe, but it's also West Brom. So
cautious optimism with Arsenal for sure.
My notes for West Brom: their attack, garbage. Midfield, garbage. Defense, garbage. Goalie, garbage, except he's kind of like Carl Darlow, where he's going to get peppered every week. So he'll make saves. And that's tough for me because my 2 goalies are Matt Ryan, who we'll talk about in a second, and Sam Johnston. So I'm looking pretty bad back there.
Yep. If you're owning any West Brom player in fantasy right now, it's off pure hope. Like, it's not because they've actually done anything.
It's pure hope, or it's a striker and you're in a deep league and you just need a striker that's going to play 90 minutes as your 3rd guy.
Yeah. And even then, it's Grant getting 2 minutes every week or Robinson getting 2 minutes and maybe. Okay, moving on. Brighton 3-3 Wolves. Lots of goals in this one. What I have is I thought Welbeck was a bit ahead of Connolly in terms of Brighton, but then Connolly played in this game, did well. So I think maybe I don't know, he's kind of come in and out of the team in the past. He's not really trustworthy, but anytime a forward basically scores, the scarcity of forwards, it's like they're probably getting picked up.
Somebody's going to go for him on the waiver wire, yeah.
You hope he continues with a run in the team and you see what happens, because you're probably not dropping much to get him as your third forward anyway. My Wolves is, so I've been kind of on the Wolves defender watch, especially their fullbacks. I'm sure you have as well. Aït-Nouri played this game. I mean, they conceded 3 goals against Brighton, so I don't know if that means Aït-Nouri plays again, but whichever left back, right, I mean, Semedo's probably locked in on the right. Whoever wins the battle out of Marcel and Aït-Nouri, I would want to own. If they're in a timeshare and they're splitting games, then it's going to be probably too annoying for me to want to own any of them, so I'd stay away from it. But just keep an eye on that battle.
Yeah, my Wolves point was, I mean, I think if you're owning Seiss right now, who's looking really good because he's scoring, I would try and sell high on him, because try and get a top 6 defender for him. Somebody might bite it and be like, oh, well, you know, Wolves are generally a pretty good defensive team, and if this guy's scoring goals, you know, all the more bonus. But the reason I'm saying sell high and not keep him is because he's been playing in a back 4 because Willy Bawley's been hurt. Willy Bawley has played 90 minutes every single game he's been fit for Wolves this year. So I imagine that would continue. As a Bowley owner, I'm praying it continues. But try and sell high on Seiss, I think, because as soon as Bowley's back fit and they stay in this back 4, there's going to be a timeshare at center back, and I don't think it's Cody that's going to be dropping out because he's Mr. Reliable for them back there. So Seiss and Bowley will probably split, you know, every other game with this congested fixture. So try and sell high on Seiss is my advice.
Yeah, I'd be throwing out offers to guys like Thiago Silva, like a big 6 team who's underperforming. I don't know, like even maybe like if you can get Tierney, that'd be fantastic. I don't know if I'd be going for any Arsenal center back, but you know, guys like that that have been playing all season for big 6 teams, I would try to be sell Seiss for something like that.
Absolutely.
Crystal Palace 2, Sheffield United 0. Will they ever score again? Who knows? My note for Sheffield is Lys Mousset played. Again, kind of like the Pereira, he played. That's all you can say for any Sheffield or West Brom players is they played, because they don't score assists. So Mousset played. Hey, maybe he's the striker that actually scores a goal for them eventually. Palace, my note for Palace, another boring fantasy team, is this they kept a clean sheet for the first time all season. So there you go. I don't know why you'd be owning Palace defenders when they haven't kept a clean sheet all season. But there you go. I'm not even suggesting you pick up any Palace defenders because of this. I'm actually suggesting you don't do that. I'm just saying that's the only note I had is they did keep a clean sheet. So good for you if you've kept them. What is this? Game week 17. Good for you if you've kept faith in Van Aanholt for 16 weeks or whoever for 16 weeks, and now they finally rewarded you with 1 clean sheet.
Did Van Aanholt even play this weekend?
No, he didn't. As I said,
it was Tyrick Mitchell, eh?
Yeah. Good for you if you streamed in Tyrick Mitchell.
That's a tough one to swallow for any Van Aanholt fans or owners.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have much on this game either because it's 2 fairly boring fantasy teams. Sheffield don't own any of their players if you can afford to, except for maybe McGoldrick because he seems to be starting every game. Like McBurney, I think, is out hurt right now, so he seems like he's one of their 2 reliable strikers that Chris Wilder always wanted to start. So maybe own him as a 3rd striker, but don't get excited about it. He's not very good. And as far as Crystal Palace, if for some reason Eberechi Eze isn't owned in your league, pick him up.
There you go.
He looks so good.
Yes.
Like you look at that goal, he just, it was beautiful to watch. And I had another quick one about Palace is Christian Benteke might have taken that Ayew role, Liam, that I know you've talked about.
And I don't know why. He's not good.
No, he's not particularly good. but he gives them something different.
Yeah, I guess so.
Ayew brings more of like a hardworking, kind of makes up for what Zaha lacks, and like he'll work hard with him up top. He'll keep going. He's a pretty technically good player. Like he scored a real nice goal last year. Like he's a good technical player, but but they already have that with Zaha, a good technical player up top, and Eze on the wing if he keeps playing. And Benteke brings that, presence up top.
Being big.
Yeah, literally, he's just a big body up there that can, when Crystal Palace, who like to sit back, inevitably have to kick the ball forward, he's a lot better at holding it up than Ayew is, and he can bring Zaha and Eze into the play better. So I think he's going to start up there because he gives them something different.
Yeah, looks that way at the moment. I'm going to hold stock on Ayew Island, but I'm not.
That island might be
confident.
sinking.
Yeah. Spurs 3-0 leads. Boring versus exciting, and Boring scores 3. My Spurs note is, man, I was excited. I traded for Doherty. Thought I had something good going there. And then he gets a red card. And by the way, that lost me my week. If he didn't get that red card in the 90th minute, I would have won my week. So that was
with the second most points to boot.
Yeah, no kidding. So that was disappointing. So maybe the night Sergio gets back in. I unfortunately don't have the sound clip ready, but maybe he gets back in. But I think actually Spurs, I think the suspension for Doherty, I'm just thinking of it now, he served it today probably in the EFL Cup. And it was just 2 yellows, so it's probably a 1-game suspension. So maybe Doherty does play again, actually. So, yeah. That's kind of the note I had for them. Everything else we already know about Spurs. For Leeds, I had nothing to report because I think we know everything about them. I'm not mad at any of my Leeds players. I'm absolutely owning the usuals. Their fullbacks, their wingers, their attacking mids, their striker.
Yeah, I agree with you on those points for Leeds because you know what you're going to get for them. I think some people might be worried that, they just lost 3-0 to Spurs. They got pumped by United 2 weeks ago, and they're worried about maybe owning the defenders. That's only happened because it's against a team that is like perfectly set up to counter them.
Just own their fullbacks. You don't need to own their center backs.
Own their fullbacks. Don't own their center backs.
And they'll score goals against most. Well, they're not going to score most of the time, but Alioski or Dallas score a lot.
They'll get points. They'll get a goal or an assist because that Leeds team attacks all game. The only thing I want to say about Leeds that you haven't really touched on is they are a team that plays super high tempo all the time. Not a whole lot of rotation. I think you get concerned a little bit that they're going to die out come the second half of this year and slow down because they did it last year in the championship in a league that's a lot more condensed than the Prem. They slowed down in the second half of the year. Even though they won it, every other team slowed down after the break, and they were just lucky enough that every other team slowed down. Because the year before, when they almost got promoted and they looked like they were going to get promoted easily, they slowed down by the end of the year, and they lost promotion, they lost in the playoffs, and they couldn't get there. So that's the only thing I'd look at for Leeds is maybe you try and sell high when you start to see them slow down a bit, and you say, well, Leeds have been so good for so long, like this season. You definitely want one of their defenders or one of their players. Is you think about maybe trying to sell high on them, because I don't think they keep this up all year because it doesn't seem sustainable in a super condensed season.
I agree. I think that is a great point to sell high. Saying that, sell very high because their players are very valued. So.
They're worth a lot right now. So and then for Spurs, I had a point on same old boys are killing it for them. Son and Kane are great. You know what you're going to get from their defense with Jose Mourinho at the helm. The only thing I want to say about them is maybe take a chance on Ndombele. I can't remember if he's owned in our league, but
I think he is. I had him for a bit and then dropped him.
I had him for a bit too. and dropped him because, you know, he got me like an assist or two in 2 straight games and then did nothing. So I dropped him. But he looks like some guy you try and ride when he's hot because he's plays in an attack that's pretty potent. And I even watched today in their game against Brentford in the League Cup, he got another assist because he's the center mid that's going to play passes in there. You've got Sissoko, who's just going to run like a madman up and down the field. You've got Højbjerg, who is a defensive stalwart. He's not going to get going forward doing much. So maybe take a chance on Ndombele as a 5th mid because he's a creative piece in their midfield, if there even is one.
I agree. I think he's in a good spot to produce some fantasy value for the time being. I would be aware of Lo Celso when he comes back. He might play cut into his playing time, but no, I agree. Let's move on. Aston Villa loses 2-1 to United. I just said that in a really weird way, but like we said, title race on. Here we go, Manchester United. United, you know, your primaries did well. I think this is a good week for Martial owners. So if you own Martial, I do think he's going to be the one that's playing most of the time anyway. They might throw some Cavani in. He's certainly not the Martial of last year, but I think beyond Rashford and Fernandes, he's the next attacker I'd want to own on that team. Villa, I have absolutely nothing. You know, I like their front four. Looks like that front four is locked in. That's all I like for Villa. So nothing new to report there.
Yeah. I agree with Martial. I think he's going to start rounding into form now. I think he had a slow start to the year. So if you're a Martial owner, you've held on this long, keep holding on because he looks like he's rounding into form and he's going to start producing. He might not be as lethal as he was last year when he had a career year for United. Yeah. But he'll start producing. He's going to start going. A different point from what you've said maybe for United is Bailly looks like he might be worth owning. He's been playing well.
Looks like it for sure.
As long as he stays fit, I think you keep him because he's looking good beside Maguire. He is almost the antithesis to Maguire, where Maguire's kind of slow, a lot calmer, you know, a little more technically sound. Bailly, fast, hard-nosed defender, no nonsense, and I think he just does a good job complementing him, like better than Lindelof. Even though Lindelof isn't a bad player, I think Bailly fits with him better. So I would look into getting Bailly maybe in fantasy, pick him up if you're a little scant on the back end in your fantasy team. As far as Aston Villa, their front four looks good. They look legit going forward. The one different point I had than you is their defense is kind of meh, but cash is money. You look at them in that game, cash is money. He looks so good whipping in those balls for them. And that's an attacking team. Their fullbacks are going to get forward, and his delivery looks really good.
Yep.
And he's on set pieces too.
Definitely
he is whipping the ball in. Yeah, he is the defender you want to own on that team for sure.
Yep, that's a fair
they've had a bit of rotation at center back. So, I mean, Mings is kind of a mainstay, but they've been rotating. Yeah, if you want a Villa defender, you want cash.
Yes, sir. Okay, last one. Everton, disappointing loss at home to West Ham, 1-0. For Everton, don't got too much. You know your primaries there. Outside of that, Coleman made a return, so he played again. I think he's probably worth owning as a midfielder. He's been a good fantasy player
Coleman?
for 10 years
defender,
now.
You mean?
Sorry, defender Coleman.
Yeah.
He's been a good fantasy defender for 10 years now. So I think he's worth a pickup again, even though Everton are prone to laying eggs like this. Generally a better team than most, in the top half. That's what we can say about Everton. So not a horrific fifth defender option or fourth defender, whatever. West Ham, not too much. It looks like I had Ben Rama played. That's fun. He's a fun player. And it looks like Antonio should start next game. He got a good solid 30 minutes off the bench. And obviously Hilaire doesn't do much for anyone. So I think Antonio owners like me are hoping that he stays healthy the rest of the season. And I bet you he starts next game. That's what I've got.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with West Ham there. I think Ben Rama should be a bit of a bigger point because they've looked a lot better with him in there.
Yeah.
Like,
well, he's a lot better of a player than
he's a lot better than Mark Noble.
Yeah.
Playing center attacking mid. They've looked a lot better going forward with him in there, which is hard not to be because they're not a very good team going forward generally. But they've looked better this year. Ben Rama has looked good for them. So I would look at maybe taking a flyer on Ben Rama. I don't think you're taking any risk there, really. You'll drop a fifth midfielder for him. That's probably not doing much for you.
Yeah.
And he looks pretty good going forward. So yeah, West Ham, look at Ben Rama. He looks like he could be pretty nice for them. And yeah, he'll help out Michail Antonio. He'll be putting balls in behind for Antonio to run on and expose defenders.
Looking forward to that.
As far as Everton, they have not been playing very well. I know a lot of people were super high on them after the start of the year because, I mean, why not? Everton have languished in mediocrity forever, so why not get excited about them? And their fantasy players as well, because the Maester has been good. He's slowed down a little bit, but I think people owning him look forward to him taking an uptick because James is back fit.
True.
And he unlocks defenses, or at least he certainly did it when he was fit at the start of the year this year. So take solace knowing that Calvert-Lewin's probably going to start scoring goals in bunches again because he'll have James feeding him the ball, and that man has a magical left foot. So
yep, that's a good
point.
Calvert-Lewin
owners, be excited.
Yeah, that is positive for all the Everton fantasy relevant players.
Yeah, and even
to have him back in there.
And even Coleman's back, and he's a lot better going forward than Holgate at right back or Godfrey or whoever they've been playing at right back. So look for Lucas Dean to be back soon. I think he's supposed to be back soon, and he's twice as good as Coleman going forward.
Yes,
he whips in a great ball, and that's exactly what Calvert-Lewin lives on. So he'll start getting assists, I think, again, and he'll be a nice pickup if for some reason somebody dropped him because he was hurt for so long.
Agreed.
But yeah,
it's a great point. All right, those are the games. My last thing that I'm going to actually usually give a little bit of shout out to our league. I'm going to find the standings here. But I also wanted to say another thing you guys should know is, so this game week has not a lot of teams playing. And every game week is valuable, guys. You're not dropping any actual good players, but if there's a guy that's kind of on the bubble of your team and he doesn't have a game this week, and you've been thinking, maybe I drop this guy, drop him. Drop him for someone that plays. Get more players playing in your fantasy matchup than your opponent, and get a win this week. For example, myself personally, I'm obviously dropping Iosi Perez. Obviously going to drop him. He doesn't play. I think this week I'm dropping Luke Ayling as well. Just because Ayling's been playing center back for Leeds, hasn't been the certified bomber that I christened him as. So this is the week where if you got a guy who you've been thinking about dropping, which it has been in my mind for a couple weeks, this is the week to do it and go out and get someone that plays that could actually get you points this week. So you shouldn't really be owning any fringe guys that don't have a game this week, I think.
Yeah. As somebody who owns fringe players a lot of time and holds on to them for some reason, here's a reality check, guys. Coming from a man who's in your exact same position, just let go of them.
Just let go.
Try and win this week. Let go.
It's honestly hard to let go
emotion
of fantasy players that you've been emotionally invested in. Just you got to know when to do it, when to cut the cord.
Emotion doesn't win you a fantasy Premier League title. It's not going to win you much like in this. Just let go of them. Try and win this week. I know for me, I think I'm already a lost cause this week because I've got like 4 guys who are going to play only. So I'm a lost cause. I'm still going to try and get players that are going to play. And I think a big point that people should be aware of is over the next 2 game weeks, because next game from game week 18, there's not a lot of players playing. Game week 19, there's some double game weeks. Look out for that. But something to pay even more attention to is Man City and Burnley have 3 games in the next 2 game weeks. Man City and Burnley players play in game week 18, and they have 2 games in game week 19.
Yeah,
so
true.
Hold on to them.
Yeah.
I was thinking of dropping one of my Burnley defenders this week to try and get a top 6 defender, but I don't know if I want to get rid of pick up Azpilicueta, because as soon as Reece James is back, he's probably not going to play anymore. So I'm probably going to hold on to Matt Lowton because he's going to play 3 games. Even though he plays Man United and Liverpool as 2 of those games, that's still a lot better than some players who are not going to play at all this week and play 2 games next week. Like, own those guys if you can, because every point counts in the big game weeks like that and the slim picking game weeks like game week 18 we're going to have. So try and get all the points you can over these next 2 weeks. So get as many people that play as you can.
Yep. All right, Kieran, thank you for joining. That's going to be it from us, guys. Oh, actually, I logged on to the standings and didn't even talk about it. Let's give a shout out to Dev Curry. The Revenge Tour is well and truly on, up to 4th place.
Oh, it is.
Passing me. Marco passes me. I'm going to reel in Marco real quick, though.
That's
you don't have to worry about that. Who else we got moving up? I'm moving down. We got Cody moving up somehow. He drafted a pretty poor team. Traditionally bad fantasy player. Chris moving down. Austin moving down. Mike back down into last. Hey, good for you,
jumped
Kieran.
up into first. Yeah, but I play Mike this week, Liam, in game week 18. So I think I'm going straight back down, which is
could be
not great.
Oh, you get mind that gap, Kieran. That's 5 points already for relegation. You gotta.
Yeah, you think I'm happy about this? Nate's getting wins because he's playing guys who put up less than 20 points.
Yeah.
Last week. Like,
I don't think you're happy about it.
I wish I could play that. I wish I could play that every week. Instead, I lost with the 3rd most points last week. I'll say I got lucky this week though, because I did, and I tied Sandy, and I got lucky this week to get a point at all and move out of the basement. But yeah. I need to mind that gap for sure. It's squeaky bum time. I'm starting to sweat over here.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Brother Kieran. Get active on those waiver wires, guys. That's how you're going to go win your league. I think that's going to do it here at Banter Bets and BPL. We've got so the next games are next midweek. So you got some time to get those claims in. Absolutely no excuses. So yeah, work those corners, and good luck to all the fantasy Premier League players out there. Kieran, you can have the last word.
Yeah, good luck, you guys. Try not to be me and trade Aubameyang for pennies and lose all your injured players. So yeah, be smart with your trades. Don't panic too early, because now I'm starting to regret that trade looking at how Arsenal are turning a corner.
Yep. Don't make stupid trades. Don't do stupid stuff, and you won't get relegated. There you go. As
our little brother has said, it's not about what they've done in Fantasy Premier League. It's about what they're about to do. So keep that in mind.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening.